Right, it's a new game and so many little match engine changes that we had to start with Pep Guardiola because of the libero, the inverted wingbacks and positional play. I thought it was only right that we started with this one. All right, guys, let's get stuck in. Okay, so here is the tactic. Now, I'm just going to make it perfectly clear. I do not design FM tactics to break the game and to score you 3,000 goals in a season. The idea behind my content is I kind of look at real life stuff and then try and replicate it in the game with, fingers crossed, hopefully then a nice little crossover into the match engine and at the same time giving you a realistic tactic that potentially will work in Football Manager. Obviously, we're playing with Man City today, so most things will work, but you want to see those little movements, don't you, that you see in-game, in real life. Now, all my tactics are available to download in my Patreon community. Check out the link down in the description. You get the free files in the Patreon. You get updates and the tactic files in here as soon as the videos drop. Okay, if not, and you're not a Patreon, you don't want to be a Patreon, that's absolutely fine. I appreciate your support anyway, so just smash the like on today's video and I will go through all the team instructions, player instructions, all the little tweaks so you can copy it into your own FM24 save yourself. Okay, so this is the 4-3-3. Now, it has changed considerably. I think Pep's a little bit caught between, not caught, he probably knows exactly what he wants to do, but with injuries to De Bruyne, stuff like that, and a couple of changes, Gundogan going out, how to get the midfield balance. Now, I've at times have tried a 4-2-3-1 with like a double pivot with Kovacic and Rodri, with Kovacic and a bit of a volante role, but it just hasn't clicked as much, so I've changed a few little things in the team, in the tweaks, and this seems to be the best way of getting it. Now, I've put a Mazzala in just because of the signings Pep has made. Kovacic can do a Mazzala. Nunes a good dribble as well. Both like to dribble the ball. So that's why I've got a Mazzala in. And as I said, the main thing we're looking at down here is libero with John Stones. Now, unfortunately for me, John Stones started the season injured. He then played, I don't know how many, it was literally, he came back fit and then he literally got injured. Yeah, he's played 9 minutes so far this season. But we've gone with it. I've played Ake there. I've generally played Gvardiol there. And it's worked pretty well. So I'm going to go through the player instructions and the player roles. And then we'll do the team instructions and explain why we're doing little bits. And I've got a few little snippets at the end just to show you how it is working in the game. Right. Sweeper keeper. On attack, we have got Ortega, even though it is actually Ederson. So let's just put Ederson in there. There you go, sweeper keeper on attack. Ederson has been known for going quite long at times, being quite high, obviously, in his positioning, but passes now going quite long into Haaland to get up the pitch. If we just look at long passes in the Premier League at the moment, as you can see, a lot of goalkeepers in there. We've got Joaquin Anderson, but quite far up. Number 9 is Ederson, so it just shows that they are going long. So having that sweeper keeper on attack will just vary the service that he gives and also allow us to go along into Haaland as well at times. Okay, sweeper keeper on attack. Now, we want to build up with this, as we can see on the screen, this sort of like 3-2 structure where we obviously have Gvardiol moving into midfield and then Walker, the other centre-half, and then the other fullback. The fullbacks are definitely more defensive players now and build-up players rather than getting on the end of things and hitting the byline with crosses, stuff that you'd maybe associate with Pep Guardiola in the very, very early days. So as you can see, what we're trying to create is this little bit of a build-up with like a 3-2 with the 2 fullbacks sometimes coming in or being a little bit lopsided to act as like a back 3, with then the libero pushing into midfield to make a 3-2 in build-up and then keeping the other 5 a little bit higher up the pitch. So, as I said, sweeper keeper on attack for Ederson. The 2 fullbacks, we've gone with inverted fullbacks, the new role, really liking it. Quite bog standard in terms of what the players can be. I think inverted fullbacks in the game, and especially at lower league, are really good. You know, he doesn't ask for too much from them. There's going to be a little bit of carrying. Gvardiol did that a lot against Brighton at the weekend, where even though he was playing as a fullback, he was dribbling a little bit more. But just for a bog standard to get the build-up phase right, we've got inverted fullbacks on defend. The right centre-half is Ruben Dias, and I've got him on cover, just a central defender on cover. Now, I've done that because if you look at a couple of the heat maps at average positions, he's so much deeper sometimes than other players. So I've got it on cover just so he drops off. Obviously, the danger is the libero pushing further forward, getting involved in build-up and going into midfield. So, you know, having that as a cover, just making sure he doesn't go and press a little bit, just sits off maybe a couple of yards deeper, will just help potentially with counter-attacks and also just creating that realism in terms of average positions, what you see on them little pictures that I showed you before. Now, libero is an interesting one. I've been changing this throughout the game in terms of defend and support. You know, in the bigger games, I've gone on defend. Games where we're playing against low box, I've gone on to support and just change it and flip it during the game. So that's entirely up to you. That will depend on who we're playing, that will dictate whether we're going on defend and support. Ake, we've spoke about inverted fullback on defend. Now, Rodri's an interesting one. I just didn't want everything to go through him as the complete hub, so I've just gone defensive midfielder on defend, and he'll dribble less and hold position because we want him just really to sit nice and tight in there. Kevin De Bruyne, obviously he's out injured at the moment, so I'm trying to think of what it will be when he comes back fit. I used him as Ala, but we just didn't get that directness from him. We want him in these areas here. We want him crossing. And we want that sometimes late run into the box, and even at times looking a bit like a 4-4-2. So that's what we're trying to create with that central midfielder on attack. I have got also cross more often because obviously we want him in these half spaces delivering crosses. And I've also got him stay wider, just so in build up, he could come out here once again, just so he can get into the half spaces a little bit more. I necessarily don't want him right in here. I want him in these half spaces and working in these channels where he's hopefully going to combine with Foden, especially if Foden then cuts in onto his left foot. The option might be for De Bruyne to go around the outside to get a cross in. So that's why I've got stay wider on. And then Mazzala, left-hand side. I tried with an advanced playmaker with Bernardo Silva, but unfortunately Bernardo Silva's been out injured a lot of time. But I was just getting, with obviously the libero going into these areas here, at times the advanced playmaker was still dropping in it, and we don't want that. We want those 2.8s to be quite high. So in some games, I've even gone attack to make it really high. So we get that sort of like that 3-2-5 shape. And then moving into the wide areas, pretty simple really. The big thing is that even in last year's game, I was using people like Grealish, even though he's not regarded as a winger. I was using him as a winger anyway because of his player traits and that he would naturally cut in. But now because of the player instructions of cutting side with the ball, it's vital that we have Doku. If I show a little clip of Manchester City and a little bit of build-up, a little screenshot how wide Doku is, and obviously with Foden coming in naturally drifted in, and if Bernardo Silva plays out on that right-hand side, naturally drifting in, we haven't got the gallivanting fullbacks creating real much width on both sides, so having Doku on that left-hand side, or a Grealish, with the instruction of cutting side, and on attack as well, especially now Doku's playing, he's quite a little bit of an outlet for him, so at average positions at times, he's the highest man forward. On the right-hand side, we've got an inverted winger on support, no player instructions. Obviously, Foden's just going to naturally drift in, start a little bit wide, and then drift in onto that left foot, and we probably expect Bernardo Silva to play that role at some point as well. And then up front, Erling Haaland, advanced forwards. What else can you say about him? He's started pretty well. Yeah, 19 and 16, he's doing all right. Now into the team instructions, positive mentality, wide attacking width, just to make sure we get Doku out as wide as possible so we can get a switch in. We've always got the outlet and we're trying to create that little bit of a 1v1 with Doku out there. So having the pitch as wide as possible, very important. Much shorter passing, just so we can get that build up in terms of passing and, you know, not overhitting it at times. Keeping the ball, having much shorter passing. I think there's a thing about how many yards Pep likes the ball to be passed on. Obviously, we're going to have players like De Bruyne who will switch the play occasionally, but all in all, we're wanting much shorter passing with slightly lower tempo. That helps create possession numbers, not over rushing it, not overthinking it, just constantly moving the ball, rotating the ball around until we find an opening. So slightly lower for that. Time wasting, never. That's a personal preference that, you know, you're free to change it depending on your team. Working to the box, and that is it. In transition, really simple. I've left the goalkeeping stuff completely blank. Because Ederson goes long, he goes short, he builds with the centre-halves, he plays to fullbacks, he plays to Rodri. I've left it completely blank, and you'll just see a nice variation in the game. When possession has been lost, obviously counter-press, we want to get that ball back as quickly as possible. Still, Manchester City, probably the best team with and without the ball in the Premier League and probably the world, so that one on. Now, when possession has been won, counter I've not put on. Just because City in the past have generally tried to keep the ball and don't overdo it. They do it more now because of players like Doku and Haaland in the side. But we get it anyway with just these two little clips that we could see. We win the ball back in both clips and we get the ball and we counter and we transition really quickly. So I'm kind of finding it needless in terms of having to do the counter. If you do the counter as well, it does generally mean that more players will go forwards and then we're likely to be opened up to more counter-attack. So I've left that off. And as you can see with the clips, that we're still counter-attacking, we're nicking the ball and we're still attacking aggressively and quickly. So having that off hasn't been a problem at all. And then out of possession, very simple. We're trapping outside, forcing the play out wide and then trying to trap out there. Slightly more often tricky press, left it down the middle, not over the top now with the pressing and the running. Manchester City will often sometimes even sit back into a mid-block, sort of like a mid to high block. Sometimes when De Bruyne was playing, I'd a sort of like press with a 4-4-2. So nothing over there, but I have done a high press and a much higher line just to get us up the pitch and help us dominate the ball in that half. Get it back as quickly as possible. That will help with the counter press. Obviously, Ruben Diaz on cover will help that just in case there's a ball over the top. And obviously, Ederson starting position as a sweeper keeper on attack. All right, so there is a little clip of just the movement of Doku in the pitch. So keeping the pitch as wide as possible. As you can see, he's right at the top of the screen, right up there out of the way. He's going to actually be the goal scorer in the end. And we just work it nicely. So De Bruyne working in these half spaces in between sort of like fullbacks and midfielders and and central defenders. He picks up the ball. He finds a Haaland. We've got Ruben Diaz playing as the libero as well. If you want to keep an eye on him, he's not impacted. We just see where he moves into. But Doku has the run into Haaland. And then obviously now his width, the defender's been sucked in, and then it leaves that gap to play, and he comes in, cuts inside, in, a really good finish. So that's that width, the winger role, but naturally wanting to come in onto that right foot, keeping the width as well, because it's always an outlet, and then you've got that space to then thread balls through, and obviously pace of Doku is going to get in against any fullback. And then this one's just a really nice build-up. Doku is going to be the creator in the end for Nunes playing as the Mazzala. So there is Nunes. So quite high. We've got like our 3-2-5. So there's the 3. There's the 2 with Ruben moving into the libero with Rodrigo. We've got the 2 8s. And then obviously our wide play. So look how wide actually Foden does get, even though he's an inverted winger. But on the other side, look, Doku is stretching the player and allowing space in there. So we just keep it and we play. Obviously, Foden's naturally going to come inside. Nothing, the fullback. This is why I do love, in terms of rest defence, it's really good to have inverted fullbacks on either side, because if there's a counter-attack now, you've got players in. Even if, if you're really struggling as a defensive side, just having inverted fullbacks on defence, just keeping them back, helping and making sure that you don't get a counter-attack through the middle. Really, really useful, and definitely a role I'll be using on various points during FM24. But there he is, Foden cutting in. And now what we've got, look, Doku's kept the width. Nunes is pretty much playing up there as a striker, occupying those 3. I think because they're up nice and high, it's giving Castagne at Fulham a real big problem. Does he go in and help his centre-halves? Or does he go out there and mark Doku? If he does either, it leaves Doku completely 3. If he goes in and gets Doku, he leaves then space for Nunes to attack and being outnumbered pretty much, being a 3v3 or even a 3v2 in there. And then the play comes, nice little switch out to Doku, and then Castagne now has to engage, and then we can just play around him, and that's what we do. Nunes comes in, hits that space really well as a Mazzala, and there we go. Really well, patient because of the lower tempo. We wait, and then we get the switch in, get Doku in, and then score a really nice goal. All right, guys, that is it. Play like Pep. There is loads of different changes. Let me know the midfield shape and what you think Pep's maybe dreaming up when everyone's fit. I imagine it'll probably go to a Bernardo and a Kevin De Bruyne in there, potentially. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you later.